especially in the context of climate change. To feed our people and produce surplus for export, large-scale modern irrigation is the only viable pathway forward. We have mapped out 50 mega dams, 200 mini dams, and over 1,000 macro dams across all our 47 counties, especially in our arid and semi-arid areas, which have expansive, fertile, and arable land currently not under production because of lack of water. With this plan, an additional 2.5 million acres of land will be brought under agricultural productivity through extensive water harvesting, water storage, and advanced irrigation technologies. This is not only about food and water security. It is a nation-shaping investment. It will drive our transition into a net exporting economy. It will uplift rural communities and end the indignity and shame of food insecurity. And it will anchor sustainable development for generations ahead. Charging forward, investing in modern irrigation will supply adequate quantity, good quality, and reliable raw materials required to power agro-industrialization. Through our special economic zones, export processing zones, and county aggregation and industrial parks, and our strategic market infrastructure across Kenya, these raw agricultural materials will be transformed into high-value products for domestic, regional, and global markets. Third, fellow citizens, energy is the lifeblood of any modern economy. Although Kenya's installed capacity stands at 3,300 megawatts, the intermittency of solar and wind leaves us with a firm capacity of only 2,300 megawatts, which is far below the demands of the Kenya we are building. To power our domestic consumption, agro-processing, and value-addition industries, e-mobility, digital expansion, and a future driven by data centers, artificial intelligence, and modern technologies, we must scale up energy generation exponentially. Kenya possesses extensive and largely untapped renewable resources, including geothermal, solar, hydro, wind, and nuclear, ready for development and for generation. Charging forward to modernize our economy, accelerate our development, and compete globally, we must and will generate at least 10,000 megawatts of new energy over the next 7 years. Fellow citizens, to finance this 5 trillion national economic freedom project, relying solely on national budget would leave us waiting forever. Borrowing would only deepen our debt and burden future generations. Raising taxes would place unbearable strain on households. And choosing inaction would condemn our nation to stagnation. That is why we must act with courage, innovation, and foresight to design alternative financing mechanisms, leverage mature national assets, and tap into robust public-private partnerships to undertake this national development imperative. Fellow citizens, 3 weeks ago, I signed the Government-Owned Enterprises Bill into law. The new law revolutionizes the management and governance of state-owned enterprises, professionalizing boards through merit-based independent appointments and tying leadership to measurable results. This is a very consequential reform. It is the most far-reaching reform of government corporations since independence, aimed at turning legacy parastatals into commercially disciplined companies that will serve our public interest. The passage of this law ends the era of cronyism and patronage in our state-owned enterprises. This law explicitly disqualifies any person who has served in a public or political office within the last 5 years from appointment. On Monday, under this new legal framework, and to start this administration's bold and ambitious Kenya shillings 5 trillion roadmap to transform our nation, the Cabinet will meet to consider and approve the architecture of the National Infrastructure Fund as the engine that will align our financial resources with our development goals. Through innovative mobilization of domestic resources, strategic monetization of mature national assets, democratization of ownership through capital markets, and innovative deployment of national savings, we will unlock large-scale private sector capital to fund our national priorities while reducing reliance on borrowing and taxation. For decades, Kenya privatized major assets including Kenya Airways, KenGen, Kenya Re, and Safaricom. Yet the proceeds were absorbed into the budget, paying salaries and debts, leaving no enduring national assets behind. Through the National Infrastructure Fund, all privatization proceeds will be ring-fenced and invested strictly into public infrastructure development that generate and preserve more value. This principle is already being actualized. Proceeds from the current privatization processes will be channeled directly into the fund, setting a new national standard where national assets create lasting public value. Our goal is simple. For every shilling in the National Infrastructure Fund, we will attract 10 more shillings from long-term investors, including pension funds, sovereign partners, private equity funds, and development finance institutions, allowing us to develop without the constraints that come with debt and taxation. The National Infrastructure Fund will not just be a financing instrument. It will be a generational strategy to mobilize capital, accelerate delivery, preserve value, and secure Kenya's long-term competitiveness. To secure future generations, again on Monday, the Cabinet will consider and approve the Sovereign Wealth Fund policy, anchored on 3 pillars, including savings for future generations, stabilization against global shocks, and strategic national investments. Natural resource royalties, dividends from public investments, and a percentage of privatization proceeds will capitalize this fund. This fund will impose on us the obligation of intergenerational equity, bringing to life Article 201C of the Constitution which demands that the burdens and benefits of the use of resources and public borrowing shall be shared equitably between the present and future without shortchanging future generations. With these two instruments, the National Infrastructure Fund and the Sovereign Wealth Fund, we shall begin the journey to the transformation that will lead us from the bottom up, charging forward full steam to economic freedom and taking Kenya to a first world economy. And I have said it is beginning next Monday. But fellow citizens, even the strongest financial systems, boldest infrastructure plans, and most ambitious economic strategies will fail if we do not secure the foundation of our national character. The realization of our economic freedom project will rest on three critical enablers: strategic human capital development, robust peace, stability, and security architecture, and unwavering integrity and fidelity to the national interest. To bolster human capital development, we have made bold investments in education, skills development, science, and innovation. We have raised the education budget from 490 billion in 2021 to 700 billion this financial year, and expanded science, technology, engineering, mathematics education. But to power our first world strategic human capital requirements, we must and will raise the National Research Fund from the current 0.8% to the requisite 2% of GDP. This is not, ladies and gentlemen, spending or social spending. It is nation building. The second enabler underpinning this national project is peace, stability, and security. For no nation can prosper in an atmosphere of disruption, violence,